This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor, and today I am here with Mr. Ray Tesi, the owner of Neutral Zone Studios, formerly, well, currently and soon to be formally, of Kingsland, Georgia. But Ray is sitting in a hotel room in Kingsland because he is overseeing the move of the sets because they finally have a new destination. And Ray wanted to tell me all about it so he can tell you all about it. So, first of all, welcome back to Fan Film Factor. Ray, how have you been?
Jonathan, I've been busy, but I'm actually no less for wear, so to speak. Thank you.
Okay. So let's just get right into it. Well, first of all, for those folks who don't know, after being in Kingsland, Georgia for, I believe, since 2009,
Actually, well, the sets have been here since 2009. I've been involved since 2018.
that's true. I was actually talking about the sets and not you there.
Yes.
The
Yep.
sets of after being there, you bought the sets from Vic Mignogna
Yep.
in 2018, and so anybody who's curious, Vic does not own the sets anymore. There's
That's
no
correct.
ownership at all. That is all. It is all Ray. You have been paying the rent on the facility there in Kingsland.
Yep.
And anyway, after having been there since 2009, which at this point is 15 years, there was a need to move the sets. Do you want to tell very briefly the folks who
Yeah.
aren't aware why Kingsland, why you were leaving Kingsland and taking the sets elsewhere?
Sure. So the real bottom line is that the building became, under disrepair. There are holes in the ceiling, so when it rains, it pours, so to speak. We had a water main break that was under the slab. I don't even want to talk about that when I discovered what was going on. So we have no running water in the building. We actually managed to um, bypass the water main just to get water to the bathrooms. We had, and it's no secret, we had a problem because of the egg roll people. There was some mold at the studio, which really got blown out of proportion.
I need to interrupt here for a second because
Yes.
not everybody knows what you mean by the egg roll people. I'll just tell everybody really quickly. You were and you still are for the next couple of days in a building that was shared for a while. The other side of the wall was an egg roll manufacturing company.
That is
And
correct.
they left. I guess they left earlier this year,
Oh,
right?
probably about close to 2 years ago now.
Oh, 2 years ago. They left. So the other side of the building has been vacant. And
Correct.
what was discovered, I guess, several months ago, when a person was interested in moving into the other side of the building, is that the egg roll company, I guess nobody'd really been in there since the egg roll people got their stuff out. Uh, they discovered that these guys were sort of power washing the floors with water, and in southern Georgia, which is already pretty humid, that water didn't really have anywhere to go except to the walls,
Yeah.
which were between you and the former egg roll factory, and that's how you guys wound up with mold.
Yeah.
Which you on your own dime came in with your own team and you cut those
Yep.
walls and you redid it and dried everything out.
Yep.
Anyway, that was all.
New
That was all set.
insulation, all of that. By the way, it wasn't just water. Yeah, they were washing it down with water, but there were all kinds of, and I'm only going to call it egg roll leavings. So grease and whatever. I mean, that all got into the walls, is what happened. And it got blown out of proportion. But we made it through that. But the building is just in disrepair. And right now, the owner has had enough, and I don't blame him as far as what he's had to put into the building. And so he's looking to sell it. And in all honesty, I think, it's time for something new, something fresh, something where we could be open, you know, every week or every weekend or whatever it is instead of once a month.
Something where you can flush the toilet.
Yes, exactly.
And also, and we're going to get to the new location in just a second, but I also want to point out that the old location did not have air conditioning. Does the new location have air conditioning? Because I know that you pretty much had to shut down come late spring or so, and then not open up
Yep,
until late fall.
yep, yep. Ample air conditioning in the summer, ample heat in the winter. And the other thing which we didn't have was a parking lot.
Oh,
We had a lot of dirt roads, so now we have a parking lot.
it's true. Kingsland is not a very large town. If you ever want to look it up on Google Maps, there's a it's a nice little it's an area, it's very close to the water. It's quaint, but it is not a very developed area. So there's the Best Western nearby, and that's about it. It's about 45 minutes north of Jacksonville, and it was a wonderful location for a while for these great TOS sets that were built initially by the folks at Farragut Films, and then expanded upon with the Star Trek Continues folks.
Correct.
um,
Hmm.
and it basically has every TOS set that you would want to use. It has the bridge and the sick bay. You even have a two-story engineering set. You have the transporter room. You have the briefing room, captain's quarters. You have a shuttlecraft, if I remember correctly. So
That's correct.
there's all this stuff where any set you want to film on, and the list of fan films that has shot there is way, way, way too long for your list. But it's been a wonderful, amazing resource for fans. I'm glad it is not going bye-bye permanently. It is simply moving locations. And with that, uh, shall we share with everybody, including me? I do not know yet where it is going. Where will Neutral Zone Studios
Do you have a drum
be?
roll?
I guess I can just pat my desk.
It is going to Sandusky, Ohio.
I was not expecting that.
Nobody is going to.
All righty, because we were all thinking Orlando, Florida. That was the thing that everybody was sort of expecting. Was
Yep,
okay. It's
yep.
going to be moving a little south to Florida. Now I have to say, I'm not that upset that it's not going to Florida, only because you just had two hurricanes roll through, and I was a little worried about those sets.
Yeah,
Um, but you, my friend, are in Boca Raton, Florida.
correct.
I mean, not right now, you're in Kingsland, but
Not right
that's
now.
where you
Yes.
live. And
Hmm.
and the whole idea of moving to Central Florida is that you guys, you didn't want to have to do this, however many hours,
Hmm.
drive to your studio.
Right.
I'm guessing it's a much longer drive to get to Sandusky, Ohio. Um,
It's it'd be 900 miles.
are you planning on making that drive regularly? Are you planning on relocating yourself? What is going on?
Okay, so let me tell you how we arrived at Sandusky,
Okay.
and then I'll tell you I'll be able to answer the question.
Okay.
So early on, I had gotten an offer about Sandusky, and it morphed, it changed over time, but my first reaction was absolutely not. I'm not moving to
Because
Ohio.
it's
Yeah.
Sandusky, Ohio. Now, let me stop you right there. You said you got an offer. Who
Hmm.
even knew that you were looking for a new place?
There are a couple of people in that area who actually know of us, had heard we were moving. Hey, listen, I got offers from, I'd have to take a boat to get to where some of these people wanted me to move. So I was getting offers from all over, especially after I published that, we were looking for a new place. So I even as far as California, had an offer from someone who knew me in California. And
I would have loved to have them in California. I could probably visit the set.
I'm sure you would. Um, I got an offer to move, and my first thought was no, absolutely not. I'm not moving to Ohio. Sets would be out of my control. Okay. I was worried about liability, just in, whatever. I'd still own it. So if something happened, I'd still be liable. So a lot of those things led me to believe that that was not a good option. Um, and that was very early on. That was probably May or early June when we started looking for a place. And I looked at, and I'm not going to kid you, Jonathan, I must have looked at 2 dozen. or more buildings. I looked first in South Georgia. Um, and actually, even before that, I tried I asked the building owner what would be involved to allow us to stay because the move was going to be enormous. And essentially, I'm not going to give you a number, but it was about triple my rent. And I was just able to pay rent because of the one time, one weekend a month. So that wasn't going to work. Looked at a couple of buildings in southern Georgia. Those were not going to work. We decided there's a couple of us that are on the team. My business partner is Tina Cordova, and she recommended Central Florida, Polk County. I looked up Polk County. It's got the highest growth rate in Florida, blah, 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 all of that good stuff. It's kind of near the attractions like Disney and Universal and Legoland. And so the search was on. And it was so hard to find a building that would accommodate us. And it wasn't necessarily always by size because I needed at least 12,000 square feet. But it may not have been zoned correctly. It might have been industrial and not commercial or, whatever we would need. Or it didn't
Not zoned
have
for
good,
Trekkies, is what you're
not
saying.
zoned for, not zoned for people. Um, and or it had bad access from the highway, or it didn't have parking, or it was only designed as a loading dock or a loading building. So it was very hard, and we did find two, quite honestly. One was a great fit, but it didn't have air conditioning. And so I looked into putting in air conditioning, and that was totally cost prohibitive. Found another one that really met all the check marks. But in the 11th hour, a lot of things were going sideways, and I said, you know what, this probably isn't going to work. And in those few weeks towards the end, I kept revisiting Sandusky, and I had to look up where it was going in Sandusky and decide. It was a real head turn for me because I realized that I would still own it. I realized that I was not going to be in Ohio to run it. I realized that there could be other issues with liability, but all things considered, it was the best offer that I had. And the clock is ticking. The clock has been ticking. So it was time
Because the
to get
landlord,
off.
current landlord, wants you out by a certain time. I'm guessing so he can gut the building and then sell it, right?
That's exactly right. And he's been working around us. He's been, working on the building around us. So I just want to get myself stuff out of his way, to be honest with you. If that's what he wants to do, then he should, he should have every opportunity to complete it.
And I should point out that it is nice of him to give you this time. I mean, he could have said, you've got 1 month to get out of here, and obviously, you've known since I think the late spring that this needed to happen. So you've had what, like 6 months at this point, right?
Well, it all happened in May. So whatever May is to now, that's the amount of time that
Okay.
I've known. And we had actually done some work in the studio to open up some areas so that we can, do some other things. And all of that work was done, and I had to get together with the crew, the volunteers, and say, listen, no more work. Sorry, not that it's for naught, but this has changed. I had to bring it to everybody's attention as soon as it happened.
All right. So tell me about this facility in Sandusky, Ohio. How big is it, compared to the old place, and what's the parking situation? If somebody wants to visit you, can you fly into Sandusky? Do you have to fly into some bigger city that's close by? Talk to us.
Okay, well, let's talk about the place. We'll actually be inside the Sandusky Mall complex. And they're giving us about 2/3 the space that's in an anchor store. That's a former anchor store. So we are going to move from 11,000 square feet to probably 15,000 square feet,
Oh, that's
maybe even
nice.
a little more. which is nice. I have no complaint over that.
Will there be
Um,
soundproofing because malls are not the quietest place in the world?
yeah, well, we're going to do that at the front, at the entrance. We will soundproof it,
Oh,
and I agree with you. We have a bunch of plans. They're not important plans right now. Where maybe we'll have a video a monitor out in front and do a live feed so people walking by could see what it looks like. Not necessarily all of it, but hey, wait, let's go in here. That type of thing. Um, so. So we're very happy that, and I've spoken to the mall manager, and he's thrilled that we're moving in. They're trying to make the mall a little bit more family friendly, with in like the entertainment industry. So there's some things that they're doing which I don't want to reveal just yet, but it's very, very positive. It's a mall, so there's parking all over the place. So that's all good. There are plenty of stores, uh, places to eat in the mall. One of the problems with Kingsland was you came, you did a walkthrough, it lasted maybe 2 hours, and then there was nothing to do. Here, there's a zoo nearby. There's an amusement park nearby. It's right on the lake. I believe it's on Lake Erie. There's all kinds of things for people to do, and that went into the decision making as well.
when people go to a mall, they usually go to spend money. You are going to be in a mall. Um, you're still not supposed to do anything that involves making money. So what's happening in that?
Well, we're going to do exactly what we want to plan. What we're planning is opening exactly as we were in Kingsland. So we will ask for a donation. If people want to give a donation, great. If they don't, we're not going to stop them. Um, so yeah, we are still not a money making. We're a not for profit. We're not a nonprofit, but we're a not for profit. And so we're not going to sell tickets. We're not going to do any of that stuff. We're going to do exactly what we did in Kingsland.
So what if somebody is walking through the mall with their kids and whatever and sees Neutral Zone Studios, like, oh, what's that? And they knock on your door. Oh, can we come in and see? We love Star Trek. What happens? Do you say, "Oh, come on in, let the kids run around," or do you say, "Sorry, we're not open to the public"? What's the situation?
Oh no, I mean we want to be open to the public. That's the goal is to get those people. I remember, walking with my kids in malls and seeing some weird thing that the kids wanted to go into. So we did. So I don't want to, my whole goal at the very beginning, if you recall, was just to make it open to fans at that point. Now I can make it open to the public. So if the kids want to come in now, when you say the kids can run around, got to be careful with kids running around. So we'll have people making sure they don't climb the Jeffries tube or whatever, right? Um, yeah,
So you're going to have people there. Are you going to have people there every single day because they might not necessarily want to do that for free, just hanging out in a mall waiting for people to say, "Hey, can I come in?"
right.
What's the plan there?
Well, some of it will be volunteer based. There's a lot of Star Trek fans out there in Ohio, I found out. But some people will, need to be compensated for their time. I don't think we'd be open 7 days a week because everybody needs a rest. So we want to be open weekends and, maybe 2 or 3 days during the week. Um, but we have some people who have expressed a real desire, who I know personally, who some of us know personally, who have expressed an interest in and don't live too far right now from Ohio, but would consider moving there if the opportunity presented itself, and I really hope that it will.
Now, I know of one Star Trek fan filmmaker who does live in Ohio, and that's Gary Davis of Dreadnought Dominion. Is he going to be involved in this in any official or unofficial capacity?
Well, I've spoken to Gary, and he would like to be, but just like the rest of us, we all have day jobs. But he did say to me, "I'm coming every other weekend." Um, but when we get to the point where we're reassembling the sets, putting them back to where they should be. He would like to be involved.
Well, considering how many captain's chairs and helm consoles he's built for you, that sounds like a good idea to
I
have
hate to
him
say
involved.
this, but it sounds like you talked to Gary before I did, because he
I
said
did
the
not.
same thing.
Oh no, that I just happened to. Well, Gary and I, we think alike. We're on that same
Yeah,
Trek wavelength.
yeah, I guess so.
But anyway, all right. So let's talk about the disassembly and the reassembly, and of course the part in between, which is the moving of all of these set pieces. And there's a lot of set pieces, right? I mean,
A
I
lot of
can't even
set
imagine
pieces.
how
So,
many trucks are you using?
don't know yet. We've moved two semi trucks already. Um, and the pieces are large. It's hard to maneuver them to get, many pieces into a truck. But we're managing to do it. I'll talk about, the person who's spearheading it in a little bit. Um, but, we're not taking things apart, so to speak. We're taking sets as whole and trying to move them, even if it's, wall and wall and wall, and then just sit it back up in its place. So, so we're really trying to be very considerate of the sets, um, not damage anything as we try to move it. We put everything on casters so that it's easy to just move and get into a semi. And, if you turn a set on its side, it's less than 8 feet, so or less than 9 feet. So it gets into a truck. So it was no easy undertaking. As I mentioned, we've been working on it probably 6.5 weeks over the last 2 months, not contiguously, but about that. And putting it back together, we have a good plan to put it back together, so it should be easy to just put pieces where they belong, almost like a puzzle or playing Tetris.
Or Trektress? Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I'll be here all night, folks. Okay, so there has been a lot of talk on the internet. Not always talk on the internet is true. So straighten it out for us. Some people said that you are doing this all with volunteers to disassemble and reassemble stuff, and other people said that you obviously didn't have enough volunteers because there are so many people who'd have to get to Georgia for all of this, and so in frustration and desperation that you actually hired a professional team to dismantle the sets and put them onto trucks. So can you explain and straighten out the rumor from the truth and tell us what happened?
absolutely. So, with the exception of one person, everyone has been a volunteer. Um, we've had some really good volunteers, some of them local, some of them came long distances. I'm going to mention one person in particular, Michael Sean Carter, which people may very well know. Mike lives in Illinois, and he has been joined at the hip with us. And you know what? You give him a place to sleep. I rented an Airbnb, a couple of different ones during the course of this. So, you give somebody a nice warm place or a cool place, depending on the time of year. And, food and, they're happy to help. And I can't thank those people enough. And there have been, you know, I don't want to say hundreds, but tens and tens and tens of them. Um, During the week, it's difficult. People have day jobs. I get it. So it's been, a small group of us maybe during the week. But for the most part, we've had lots of people come in on the weekend.
Including you, I'm guessing. And is any of this happening without you being there, or are you driving up from Boca every single time, or have you just camped out in the hotel room in Kingsland?
I'm camped out. It was either an Airbnb or here. And good news is that I can work remotely when I need to. So I've gotten very lucky.
Okay, so you said a whole bunch of the sets are already there. Are they in the facility? right now? They've been moved into the mall, or are they in a storage unit?
No, they're in the mall, but they're in a storage area in the mall.
Oh, okay.
Um, they're in a storage area. So there's very specifically, there's a spirit Halloween store because they're like the blob when something opens up. So they're
Hmm.
moving out by mid-November. So they wanted to keep everything segregated from their move out.
Okay. So once they're gone, you move in.
That is the plan.
And next Halloween, you have to move out because they need to be there again.
Nope,
I'm kidding.
nope, nope. They'll have to find
they'll,
their own place.
they'll have to find someplace else to sell their ghosts and ghouls and
Exactly,
goblins. Okay,
exactly.
fair enough. All right. So, how long do you think before everything is moved and reassembled and Neutral Zone Studios reopens in Sandusky, Ohio?
We are being very aggressive, but we think we could be open the early part of 2025.
Okay, then. And you said you basically wanted everything to go back to the way it was. So fan film makers can contact you and use your facility again to make their fan films.
Absolutely. That's the primary goal was to get it back to the fan filmmakers. And I know you mentioned that so many films were made there. We actually figured out, some of us sat down and figured out we had minimally 70 fan films between Farragut days and now, Tales from the Neutral Zone days, and a lot of independents. So we want to make that opportunity available again to fan filmmakers. Now, there are probably going to be some changes. Um, Certainly, we don't want to change the dollar amount. I think, they've been fair to us. We're trying to be fair to them. But because we're in the mall, we'll probably need to have them film non-weekends because weekends is where we hope to be able to, show our wares to the public. So they'll probably have to film weekdays, and they'll probably need to film between um, mall hours, which are 10 to 8, 10 to 9, 10 to 6, depending on the day. In my conversation with Gary Davis, he was like, "Yeah, okay, fine."
I'm sure that some of the actors and people will be happy not to be wrapping up at 2 or 3 in the morning. That, of course, being said, what happens if the mall is closing at 8 o'clock and it's 7:58 and they're still in the middle of filming a scene? Who kicks them out? What's the situation there?
Well, whoever our mall manager is going to be, and again, we not mall manager, but our general manager is going to monitor that. And there'll have to be some sort of a warning. Hey, you got a half an hour, or you've got an hour, or something. Um, but I think given 5 days worth of film shooting at significant hours per day, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem, you know, being able to just shut down, leave it where it is, and come back the following day, and not worry about somebody going in and fooling with their equipment.
Yeah, I think the obviously for fan films they're going to need to get used to a new protocol because I know that a lot of times fan films schedule a weekend shoot so that everybody flies down on Friday and flies back on Sunday night or whatever,
Right,
and
right.
because people it's easier to get weekends off, so it's going to be potentially more problematic to just get people to take the week off to make a fan film, but you know you, there's the trade-offs here, and obviously now you have air conditioning and heat, you have security, you have a obviously good parking, you have food nearby, you don't have to worry about
Yep.
people taking forever to have their lunch or whatever. You can even just have somebody walk over while everybody's there and bring the stuff back, and you have more room. I suppose actually the now that I remember here, so you have more space. Are you looking to expand the sets at all and build out anything you haven't had there before?
No, we want to put it back exactly the way it existed in Kingsland. So no new sets. Um, we'll have to see what comes out of storage and see if it fits somewhere. But there's only a couple of pieces that would apply to. But we really want to put it back exactly the way it was.
Well, if I remember correctly, the way that they laid it out back when Farragut Films and Star Trek Continues were doing it is they literally laid it out in the same way, mostly as the sets were laid out as Paramount when Desi Lewis first built them. So,
Right, right,
they fit together in a specific, very, very specific way.
exactly.
Because some of the sets rely on other sets to hold them up. The sick bay is obviously attached to the corridor, and the corridor is attached to the transporter room, and the head bone is connected to the neck bone, all those sorts of things. So I can totally understand, trying to put the puzzle back together. But you will have more room at this point, more space to work with. So are you going to create dressing rooms, lounge rooms? What's the idea for the
Yeah, all of the things
underwater?
that we weren't able to accomplish behind the scenes, we would certainly like to do. So yes, wardrobe, kitchen of some sort, makeup. We need a place to put lights and props and all of that, which were really kind of scattered around the sets. Um, so yeah, there'll be that. Be nice to put in a little lounge area so that people could just sit and be comfortable, especially if there's air conditioning. So, you know, plus remember we're in the mall, so you could walk outside and go to the food court. Surprised you didn't mention bathrooms and running water.
That's true. You can't complain about that when you're making a fan film. Um,
Yeah.
Although it will be sort of interesting. Do you have bathrooms inside your facility at all, or will they have to use the mall bathroom?
There are bathrooms there now. Haven't seen the footprint since the current resident, not Spirit, but the anchor store previous to them moved out. But there are bathrooms inside the facility. So we'll have to see where those are and how to get access to them and all of that good stuff.
All right. So obviously, all of this is going to cost some money. There's the move. There's developing the space with new areas. That's going to require some, wall building, furniture purchases, whatever. The move itself, the trucks. Are you paying for this all yourself out of pocket? Is there any crowdfunder involved? What's going on there?
So to date, we've paid out of pocket. Myself and my business partner have mostly put the money out so far, and it's been more significant than I would have liked to have hoped. But without giving a dollar figure, it's in the five-figure area. We are going to, yeah, exactly. We are going to release or do a crowd fund. I think the dollars that were, and I don't have a final dollar amount yet. We're really assessing how much we've spent and then kind of extrapolating how much more we're going to need. But I think it's going to be a fair amount. It's not going to be something over the top. But every little bit helps. We've had some situations in the past. Last year we did a beat the heat. Tina actually spearheaded that for me, and we didn't get what we were looking for, but we got close. So all we're looking for is close.
I guess you'll be surviving on a go forward basis on people's kind donations as they come in and take a look at the sets and take their pictures and what have you. But in terms of ongoing costs, obviously you've got rent monthly. I don't know what the rent here is going to be. How does it compare to your current rent? I'm just curious.
Um, I'm just going to say pretty close, which is
Pretty close.
quite surprising. We talked about the fact that we were looking in Central Florida, and I was looking at 5 and 6 times the amount of rent I'm paying now. So I'm very happy with what the mall has put out for us.
Well, that's great. And is it a lease where it's guaranteed rent for a certain period of time? How long until they raise it on you? What I don't know what the contract is, so I don't want to get too much into
No,
details if you
that's
can't talk
okay.
about it.
Let me just say this. It's significant enough that I may not see it in my lifetime. I hate to say it that way, but it's possible.
Well, when we say that I won't see it in my lifetime, you won't see what in your lifetime?
I won't see the I won't see the end of the contract.
Oh, okay. So you're going to be stuck there for a while, and you'll have to
Yep.
leave it as an inheritance to somebody. Uh,
Yep.
by the way, I'd love to inherit the sets, but I can't afford the rent. But that's good to know that Mutual Zone Studios will be continuing for to live long and prosper, apparently very long
Hmm.
and prosper. And so let me ask there for Neutral Zone Studios for Tales of the Neutral Zone, which is your own fan series. I know that there are some episodes that have been filmed that are in the can, as they say, that are currently being edited. So, what is the plan for Tales from the Neutral Zone in terms of what hasn't been released yet and will, and what hasn't even been filmed yet and what will be filmed in the future?
Okay. Well, we definitely want to continue filming Tales. Um, the good news for me, and I guess for the neutral zone, is that probably within the last, probably more than 6 months ago, 7 months ago, 8 months ago, Josh and I, um,
That's Josh Irwin for you folks who
Josh
don't know who
Irwin
Josh is. Yeah, yeah.
and I, yes, that's true. Josh Irwin and I said, look, I said, I can't do it all. And he loves filming. That's his baby. And so I said, look, if I'll produce it. If you wanna, what do you want to do? Because up to this point, he's barely kind of been DP on most of his stuff. And he said he wanted to direct. And I said, okay. So we kind of did a verbal handshake, if you will, saying, okay, you're Avalon and you can cross over with Tales, which we've done in a couple. The Death of War was done under both Tales and Avalon, and there'll be other stuff coming out that's very similar. So I want to continue Tales from the Neutral Zone. I just haven't been able to concentrate on it at all.
Well, that's fair enough. Now, I know that there's at least one Tales from the Neutral Zone that is in the process of being edited. It is the story of the Enterprise C, called
Correct.
History Never Forgets.
Correct.
What else is in the pipeline for Tales from the Neutral Zone?
So there's one that's called, now let me see. Now you caught me off guard. So I got to see if I can remember titles. Um, well, we have one which is an interesting story about a young lady who's on what she believes to be a training mission. And it does turn out to be something completely different. Um, Sorry, I'm just blank at the moment, Jonathan. We have another one that's, I think it's called Second Star to the Left,
Second
not
Star to the
Second Star
Right.
to the Right,
Yeah.
Second Star to the Left, which is a very interesting conceptual movie. Josh has really um, put together some preamble stuff for it when the time is right. So I don't want to give anything away about it, but I think it's something that will resonate with lots of fans on a more personal level than just being Star Trek.
I do know a little bit about that particular project, and I think you're right. I think it's going to be, in its own way, a very groundbreaking Star Trek fan film. Not in terms of its ambition, like it's not going to be another Axanar or Farragut Forward or anything like that. It's not going to blow you away. It's going to affect people, I think, on a much quieter, subtler level. But I think it's going to be a very, very special fan film for
I
that one.
agree with
So,
you.
okay. So, anything other than those three projects in the pipeline? Do you remember?
Uh, there's actually one last thing, and we missed it. Josh couldn't get it out in time for your award ceremony, but we did a 90-second trek, whatever it's called, trek in 90 seconds.
Treks in
Um,
96. Yeah.
yeah. And I'll give the plot of that one away because it's only 90 seconds, but it's a story about uh, Apollo. Takes
Oh,
into account Apollo, the Guardian, Uhura, and Lieutenant Palomas.
okay then. And all of that in 90 seconds. So,
All of that in 90 seconds.
it's the whole idea of Treks in 96 is they said it couldn't be done. You couldn't do a fan film in less than 15 minutes. So like, let's see if you can do it less than a minute and a half. And people
Well,
did it. So those have been really kind of fun. All righty. Is there anything about the move that we have not covered yet, Mr. Tessie?
not specifically, but I just want to bring a couple of people to the forefront. I talked about Sean Michael Carter. I talked about Tina Cordova. A gentleman who has really been spearheading this effort is Scott Little. And for people who don't know Scott, he did much of the construction for the sets of uh,
First
um,
Frontier.
First
Star Trek First
Frontier. Thank
Frontier.
you.
Yeah.
Star Trek First Frontier. But he's also a set designer and builder, and you would have seen his work and is credited for one of the Black Panther movies, Hidden Figures, a number of movies like that. So he was skilled in knowing how sets are put together and knowing how to modularly, if that's the right word,
A little
modularly
louder.
take them apart and make them fit into trucks. And he's been a wizard. I call him he's Scott, so he's my miracle worker.
So not only will we have the Jeffries tubes in the future, we'll also have the little tubes.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
We love you, Scott. We love you. All right. Anybody else you want to do a little shout out to, or is that the
Um,
main ones?
well, we've had a lot of volunteers come through, so I really have to say too numerous to mention, but some of them will, get credit for their services in the crowd fund. Wanted to make sure we got in a bunch of people. I would like to give a shout out to Greg Green. And if people don't know Greg Green, Greg was there at the beginning of Farragut days in St. Mary's and actually was involved in every piece of construction all the way through what ended up being the last thing, which was engineering. So he had already moved on, but everything up to engineering, he's had his hands on. And he came through and really talked to us about how to move pieces. So I definitely need to give him some love.
Okay, then we'll all give him love.
Good.
All right. Well, in that case, obviously the crowdfunder hopefully will be launched by the time that this interview goes live. So a reminder to folks to please go to that link, which I will include in the blog, to please donate at least a little bit, because every little bit helps. We want to keep Neutral Zone Studios alive, living, longing, and prospering. And once again, Ray, thank you for your time today, and also just thank you for keeping these sets going. I mean, now I know this has not been easy for you. You have been pretty much month by month eating through your retirement savings. Although, let's face it, if you can't use your retirement savings to keep Star Trek sets alive, what can you use it for? Trips to
Exactly.
Europe,
Exactly.
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 Uh, but for,
that's not necessarily 6.5 years worth of that statement, but that's okay because it was a significant amount.
Well, as a person who covers fan films for a living, not really for a living because I don't get paid for this, but there are so many amazing fan films that have been filmed on your sets, and to be so generous as to make these available to the fans to not only shoot on but also to see, and then. And nothing against James Cawley and his official Star Trek set tour, which I think is fantastic, but you are allowing people to come to open houses and they can't donate. They can come in for free and they can see these wonderful sets that you have. And obviously the fan filmmakers can shoot on there for, what is a very reasonably small amount of money. I mean, I bet, in the old days, it used to be to pay for the electricity that you were using while you were shooting there. I guess at this point, it's more just you're paying for electricity anyway here.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but it's more
Exactly.
to just sort of keep that concept of wear and tear on the sets, and just having
Yeah.
people around to make sure that everything is right and that the lights are set up properly and nothing breaks
Hmm.
down. So I totally understand that, but I think that all of us fans really owe you a true thank you, a huge debt of gratitude for what you have done and supplied for fans, because I cannot imagine anybody else going and taking that much money of their own money year after year after year to keep these sets around and pretty much seeing nothing. I mean, you are so underwater in all of this. There is no revenue stream. You are just doing this out of the goodness of your heart. So, yeah, I realize that I'm piling it on at this point, but I don't get a chance to talk to Ray very often. So, just thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes people will say, what keeps you going, you know? And you bring in somebody who's been a lifelong Star Trek fan, who's, getting up there in years, and they walk on the bridge and they start to cry. And, that's what we're there for. Or somebody who has, he's disabled and comes in a wheelchair, just wants to get out of the wheelchair and climb up into the captain's chair. I mean, can't get around that. Can't get around that.
Well, I never did get myself to Kingsland, Georgia, but I guess now I have to get myself to Sandusky, Ohio, and
Yeah.
see these amazing sets. So I'll have to explain to Wendy why
Yep.
I need to purchase a plane ticket
Okay.
to Ohio.
By the way, it's Cleveland or Toledo are the closest airports, and they're each about an hour away. So it's terribly, not terribly far.
And who wouldn't want to go to Cleveland or Toledo? I've actually been to Cleveland, and I was doing a Fan Film Factor interview a little while ago, and with the Farragut Forward folks, and Cleveland got mentioned very briefly because apparently Yakov Smirnoff had a routine where he made fun of Cleveland, and some audience members booed. And he said, "Oh, you have to understand, in Russia, sometimes, in countries, you have cities that you make fun of, in the United States, you make fun of Cleveland. In Russia, we have city we make fun of. We make fun of Cleveland.
Okay. Well,
So,
this will get me in trouble, Jonathan. Cleveland hasn't been the same since the Indians became the Guardians. So,
well, all I can say is I'm still rooting for the Dodgers right now. So I think it may be New York and LA this year. We'll see, and
I have a
people will know
feeling
by the time this interview gets posted exactly who's in the World
that's
Series.
true. That's
So
true.
we will end the Star Trek interview with baseball and insults to Cleveland.
Oh,
But once again, thank you for your time today, Mr. Tessie. And please, once again, folks who are watching this, think about giving a few dollars to just keep these wonderful sets out there and going. Okay. So
thank
thank
you.
you very much, everybody.
Thanks,
Live
Jonathan.
long
Thanks.
and prosper.